All right guys, welcome back. So today I'm getting my bow ready to go shoot Total Archery Challenge in probably less than a month. So I'm just kind of going over, make sure everything is right where I want it. I finally built a sight tape for this and I'm gonna make a video on how to do that, how I build my own custom sight tapes. The thing that I noticed on my bow was my D-loop was getting a little old. It's getting a little bit of fraying to it, but it's not a problem yet. But I'm gonna show you guys how to fix this because this is one of the first things that I learned how to do in a bow, and it helped me and saved me a lot of time and money just to go to the archery shop, just to get them to tie a new D-loop on. There's nothing that we wanna do than have a frayed D-loop and start to draw back, that thing break and you punch yourself in the face. That is not good. I've nearly almost done it. I've had one break on me before, and now I go out of my way to make sure I have new D-loops on fairly regularly. So the material that I like to use is this BC23 loop rope material. You can get this from Lancaster. I think it's like $1 a foot. BCY also makes just general D-loop material, which is BCY24, and it works just fine as well. I don't really think there's that big of a difference. The 23 is just a shade thinner. So the tools for this are pretty simple. You're just gonna need a lighter to burn the ends of your D-loop, a razor blade to cut your old loop off and cut the length of your new rope, a Sharpie if you do not have knock sets tied in to your D-loop. I would highly recommend taking your Sharpie and marking on your serving where your D-loop is so that way you can put it back in the correct spot, a pair of needle nose pliers or a pair of D-loop pliers, and obviously loop material. How much? That depends on your personal preference. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut off your old D-loop and be very careful of your strings and your serving. I try to just cut the loop that goes around right here and then pull the rest of it through. I won't cut all the way through to my knock sets because I don't want to cut my knock sets. Just enough to break it free and to cut the old string off. Now, like I said, if you have knock sets on here like I do, it's pretty simple. You just tie it on the outside of it. But if you do not, like I said, I highly recommend you take your Sharpie and make a line on your string so you know where that is going to be. All right, so now that you have your old D-loop off, it's time to start with your new D-loop and put this on. I will take it, pinch it about 1/4 of an inch from the end of my desired cut length. For me, this is 4.5 inches before I burn the ends. I'm going to fray as much as I can and mushroom it out, make it into a flower. People say a lot of different things on what to do. Me, I'm just really just smashing it and trying to pull as many fibers apart as I can. Then you're going to take your flame and you're going to come in from the angle, a side angle. And you're just going to slowly start to melt the end of that. You don't want to catch it on fire. It's not the end of the world if you do. Just blow it out quickly. And I just try to make a nice little ball at the end. Right before this cools down, a lot of people don't do this, but I do, is I'll pinch the end and just push it flat with my finger. For me, that makes a really nice end, and it's a really solid ball to pull against when you're going to pull your loop through. Do the exact same thing on the other side. Fray it as much as I can. I'm going to light it, work the flame in from the side, and just try to just get a little bit of heat on it. It doesn't have to directly be into the flame of the lighter. Get a nice little ball. Like I said, if you do catch it on fire, it's not the end of the world. But I like to pinch it right at the base and just give it a little tap. And then there you go. You have your pre-burnt end D-loop ready to install. So now that we're ready to tie our loop ends, now we have 2 burnt ends on our D-loop. I actually have a longer loop here and I'm going to show you guys how to tie it with this longer 6-inch piece. But what you're going to do is you're going to fold your loop rope over, lay it underneath the bow, and then you're going to pull both ends through the arch. This doesn't have to be pulled up snug tight yet, but just you can see how the top knot is going to be on the right side of the string for a right-hand shooter, And if you were a left-hand shooter, the top knot would be on the left side of the string. It'd be away from your face. You're going to take the loop material now, come over to the right side of the bow, come underneath through the D-loop, pull it tight, come over the top, back up under the bow, and then you pull it through the hole. You know you'll have done this right when both of the knots are on opposite ends of the string. Now, a lot of people will argue that the top knot has to be facing you and the bottom knot be facing away, or vice versa. But for me, this is the way I tie my D-loops. I've had no problems with this. They've never come undone, and I don't have any really induced torque issues from doing it this way. So pull your slack out. You can see how long this loop material is going to be. Now that this is tied in and it's loosely tied in, you can get it to the mark that you need it to be. You can give a little tug in your D-loop, pinch them. This is where your pliers come in. You can squeeze these ends in together. And if you're going to use pliers for this application, you would stick them in between and you're simply just pulling them apart. Now, you don't have to wrench down on this as hard as you can, because if you do, you're actually going to maybe start to pull your serving apart. You're going to maybe have a few separation in your serving. So you can see that is like an excessively long D-loop compared to what most bow shops would tie, which is this small. So it's all dependent. There are shooters that shoot with these and some that shoot with these really small ones, but I kind of shoot in that middle ground. So to tie this in with knock sets, it's the same process. It's just I know where my top and bottom are going to be. So I'm going to tie this back just the way we tied in the top. I tie the top end first. I make sure the knot is all the way through. I'll use my pliers and just get it as close as I can. Snug it up with my fingers. And then I'll tie my bottom loop. Now I'll use my pliers here just to get it started nice and snug. Make sure this is pushed up against my knock sets. Both sides look really good. I have knots coming through on both ends, so it's time to cinch it down. I have a pair of D-loop pliers. These are, if you're going to be doing this a lot, maybe for yourself or your buddies, these are a good investment. You're just going to want to stick them in, push them up against, and you can give it a little tug. And I am cinched down. I am ready to go. My D-loop is set. All right, as you can see, it's pretty simple to tie a D-loop. It's not an overly complicated process. It's something you can do at home. You don't need a bow press to do it. Hell, you don't even really need a bow vise to do it. I learned how to do it just holding the bow between my knees. I think you can do a lot with different size D-loops that people maybe don't understand. If maybe your bow draw length feels too short, instead of going to the bow shop and having them change out mods, you can just tie a longer D-loop on your bow to make it feel like it's a 29-inch draw instead of a 28.5. So there's a lot of things you can do just at home with different loop lengths, and I encourage you to just go out there, cut a bunch of different lengths, try them out. You don't always have to cut the D-loop off when you're trying to peel it off. Sometimes you can use a pick. I've used this before. I use this a lot actually. And I'll actually tie a D-loop on, make sure it feels right, pick it off, and then that will go into my emergency bow kit that's in the bottom of my backpack. So I have a loop that's already cut, I know works well for me, and it's ready to go. If you guys found this video insightful, if it's encouraging you to go tie more D-loops onto your bow like I have right here, all 3 of them, I suggest you go do it. Hit that like button down below. Thanks for following, guys. My name's Jeff Cordero. We'll check you next week on the next video.